everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Now, as you may have guessed it from the title of this video, we're going to be talking about nonviolent communication. This is something that I had mentioned briefly in my managing BPD in relationships video, which I'll just link above here. But essentially, nonviolent communication, I believe that this is a very important tool to know, especially when you have BPD, for relationships in general. So I figured, well, why not make a video about it? Now, you might be wondering, Kayla, what the hell is nonviolent communication? Well, thankfully, I have the answer for you. This is a communication method based on the principles of conflict resolution. It was created by Marshall Rosenberg, inspired by the teachings of Martin Luther King, and essentially NVC, or nonviolent communication, what it is made for is to help us determine our needs, make requests, all while teaching us how to be empathetic and non-aggressive in our communication styles. Nonviolent communication has four main principles, and the first one would be to observe the situation. So when you witness a situation that is revolting or upsetting, the first thing we want to do is observe the facts before losing our temper. Okay, this is not the time to make harsh criticisms or judgments, saying things like, you never do this, or you always do this. No, we want to just look at the facts. So examples would be like, the dishes are in the sink. My friend or colleague is 30 minutes late picking me up. If you're familiar with DBT, this is similar to the Dear Man skill, where the first thing would be to describe the facts. This is what we're doing. We're looking at what we can observe. We're not looking inwards to those judgments or assumptions we're making. We're looking at, just imagine that if there was a camera following you around, the camera would only be able to see what is actually out there and not your internal judgments or assumptions. Principle number 2 would be to identify the feelings. This step is really important because oftentimes when something happens, we might just impulsively lash out. We don't really know what we're feeling, if it's frustration, if it's sadness, if it's anger, if it's disgust. So taking a moment to, after we have observed the facts, so what we can see, to turn inward and ask ourselves, what am I feeling right now? What is this situation eliciting within me? And so this is an important step because oftentimes when we don't express our feelings, we end up bottling them up inside and they come out later. So just taking a moment to investigate within yourself. We go back to the dishes. You might feel upset that the dishes are not done when you had made a request for them to be made. You might feel irritated that your friend is really late to pick you up. So identifying the feeling within. Principle number 3 would be to identify the needs. According to me, I truly believe that this is the most difficult part to do because it can be easier to say like, oh, I'm feeling angry or annoyed because yes, obviously if someone is half an hour late to picking you up, naturally you would be frustrated. But with the need, we need to go even deeper. We need to have a really introspective, emotional awareness of ourselves because the issue in communication that I often see with myself and just with people in general is that when someone does something, we attack the thing on a surface level. We say, you never do dishes, you never help me out, blah, blah, blah. And we go on and on and on. And we just criticize. But meanwhile, it's because we have a need within us that is not being met. This is the root cause of our feelings, of why we're having reactions to things. And if we don't know ourselves well enough, if we don't have that introspective awareness, it's really hard then to communicate effectively because nonviolent communication is essentially asking us to look at the facts, to identify our feelings, and most importantly, to identify the needs so that we can express that and so that the person can hear us and correct the behavior based on the need. So for example, if someone is half an hour late to picking you up, you might have thoughts like, oh, fuck this person, as if they're doing this to me, like they're so disrespectful, blah, 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 and you're going on and on and on and on. But meanwhile, it's because you had this need to be respected as a person, and when that's not being met, then it causes you to be angry. Step number 4 would be to express a request. I know that this sounds easy. Trust me, it's not though, because when you're angry, it's easy and the tendency is to blame others. So when we're making a request, We don't want it to be attacking, blaming, or that's not a word, but overly critical. And ideally, the request that we're making would be a positive one. So, could you do this instead of a negative one? Stop doing that, right? Because stop doing this is like a more attacking form of making a request, whereas asking something in a positive, can you please do this, is more neutral. The request also needs to include concrete actions. So you cannot assume that people know what you need or what you want. And I know that sometimes it seems very obvious. I've had many situations in my life where someone does something and I'm like, oh my God, you're an idiot, as if you're doing this right now. And my therapist had to remind me, you know what, Kayla, it's not everyone who thinks like you. And some things may seem obvious and basic to you. It's not like that for everyone. So when you're making requests, give concrete examples. Okay, so I would like you to help me with the dishes or do the dishes on the days when I get home really late from work. You're giving them a concrete thing that you want them to do. Obviously, when we're making requests, it's also important for you to be flexible. Don't be very inflexible. We want to leave room to talk and find a compromise, a solution that works for both parties. So if we combine all 4 principles together, it might look something like this. The dishes have been piling up in the sink for a week. That's observing, that's the fact. I feel upset. Those are identifying the feelings because I have a need for the kitchen to stay clean. That's your need. Could we please think of a schedule to clean the dishes? And that's making the request. So the request is asking to make a schedule while also leaving space for compromise, right? We're being flexible in our requests. That's a really key, important part. And an overarching theme would be to be compassionate in the way that we are expressing ourselves, not attacking the other person. You need to remind yourself that you're human too and you make mistakes. And when someone tells you something, we want to communicate to others with the same respect that we want to be communicated towards ourselves. Overall, those are the 4 principles of nonviolent communication. Nonviolent communication is awesome because it can help us better interact with others, but also with ourselves. I know that sometimes I have a really harsh and mean inner voice. And if I can do this with myself when I feel like I've made a mistake, I can actually identify the facts of what happened, I can identify the feelings, I can validate myself, and I can learn how to communicate with myself more effectively. I hope that you found this video useful. Let me know if you liked it. Let me know if you would like more videos similar to this one about communication or other psychological processes. If yes, leave me a comment down below. On that note, I wish you all an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you next time for another episode of On the Line.